Namganza Stella. I'm a comprehensive nurse and a midwife. I'm registered. And my world starts with me, peer educator alumni. I'm going to talk about how to make local pads today, because oftentimes students in lower classes who aren't used to these things of menstruation face a hard time because they cannot afford buying the pads on market. So today we came up with ideas on how to make pads that would make them comfortable, and they would get them easily and even at a cheaper price if they are to buy material. To make local pads, these are some of the things that we need. We need a piece of hard paper. We need a pair of scissors. We need threads. We need a marker. If you don't have a marker, you can use a pen. We need buttons. We need a needle. We need the knicker there, of course. We need a piece of cotton, a thick cotton piece of cloth. We also need something like a polythene paper. Normally, the ones that are best are those ones which are used mostly in maternity, the ones that they send mothers to bring when they are going to labor, because they are really tough and they are the ones that we would use as best quality if we are to make very good pads. You can use such a paper that you can cut out of books, make shapes like this, and then put it on a cavera. You trace out its margins using a pen or a marker, whatever is available for you. And then after you've traced out the margins, you can also get the piece of cloth and put this paper there and still trace out the margins on the piece of cloth, because this is the shape of a normal pad. After tracing out the margins, you get a pair of scissors and you cut around the margins of the shape that you have drawn. Okay, for the piece of clothes, you cut 2 or more. The thicker, the better. It depends on what you want. After we've cut our 1 piece of cavera and 2 or more pieces of cotton cloth, the thicker the better. If you want like 3 or 4, you can cut. Either way it works. Since we know that our pads need to have wings, we shall have to trace out still this shape on the cloth. So we now cut out this piece, we trace it on the piece of cloth, its margins, because these are the wings, and here is where we shall put the what? Our buttons, and then the hole for the what? For the buttons. So this is what we do. Okay, then you drop where you're going to put your buttons on the wings, because these are the wings of the what? Of the pad. The use of this is to hold the pad firm in the knicker. After you've drawn, you get a pair of scissors and then you begin cutting through the margins of this. Now, okay, so you get a pair of scissors and you cut where you're going to put your button. A very small hole. That will depend on the size of the button you want to use, but preferably a small one for comfortability. Then you come up with such a structure. Then you come out with such a figure. These are going to be our wings. This is where the button is going to enter from, and this is the button. In the end, we are going to have something like, we are going to be buttoning them from behind the pant. After you've done that, you bring your 3 pieces, 1 piece of cavera and the 2 pieces of cotton cloth. If you want a thicker pad, you can use like 5 pieces. Then you put them together. You first put the 2 or 3 or 4 pieces of cloth that you want down, and then on top you put the cavera piece, and then you get a needle and a thread. You begin making stitches or sewing, or rather knitting. You can make a knot just behind your what? Your stitch. Go back. Cut. When you reach this point, as you're about to make a turn, after you've like made stitches all around and you're about to reach the starting point, you unfold this part. Since we want this polythene bit to be in the middle of these white layers, you unfold it. You first cut the thread. You cut the thread. You unfold such that this Cavera material is in the middle of these two cotton cloth materials. This is how you do it. Because we can't put a Cavera on top or behind, this Cavera acts like a proof. So now the Cavera is in between the two pieces of cloth. You get your needle and thread back, and then you close. By making stitches around. In the end, you come up with something like this. You pick a button and you put on this other wing that we had talked about already, where the point where you put a circle, you get a button and you put there. So you attach the button to this side of the wing to make it firm. Okay, now when you feel the button is really firm on the pad, you can always do this, make a knot of your stitch like we do when we are finishing the stitch, and then cut. So this is the time now you try to squeeze it in the button opening which you had made for it, and it actually has to look like this. So what happens when you are putting on a pad? When you're putting on a pad, this is the knicker now. This is what happens. This other pad, the first part of the pad is put on the knicker. Remember we said it has a cotton piece of cloth on top, and then a polythene paper or back, and then down there is a cotton bit of it.
Action.
After you finish to make your two pieces, you get your knicker or panty and put it like this. You get this piece of the pad and put it on the knicker like this. You get this other piece of the pad and you still put it on top of the first one. Then after, hold your knicker like this. And then, since our pad has wings, we shall just have to button such that when someone puts on this pad, it is firm. This other last piece was just to hold the pad firm in the knicker, such that if someone is in their piece, it's okay for them to go and play like any other one. Now, at this stage, you have your homemade pad, which is really comfortable and cheap.